Thank you, Tristan. That's lovely. But it's all about you, really. I mean, without you, this wouldn't happen. So thank you for coming. Thank you for staying the distance as well. This is the last talk. Can I just have a show of hands? Who would say that they use or integrate technology into their own teaching? Can you just put your hands up? Okay, so give us an example of what you do.
Using our CAS calculators, we record for the, what's it called? What's the data projected, I forget what it's called, and we analyse the data.
Oh, okay. All right. So graphics calculators, yeah? Okay, all right. Who else is doing an interesting thing with technology? Peter, what are you doing? I'm going to ask you.
Videos.
Yes, videos. Anyone else want to pipe in? Yes, Sharon.
Feedback clickers or...
The clickers. Excellent. All right, well, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my experiences with technology. Now, I used to call this talk Success and Failure because not everything that I do is successful. Some of it fails miserably. But I thought this was a more sort of proactive title. Okay, so what are the sort of questions that keep me awake at night? And probably they're the same questions that keep some of you awake at night as well. These are just, I'm not going to discuss all of these, but in teaching, how do you take an idea, a method, a concept, and make it large, make it really touch a large number of people or a large group of people, perhaps geographically diverse, or a large lecture theatre, or a large class, or a school of children? How do you do that? The other flip side to that coin is in a large room or a large class at school, how do you make teaching personalised? How do you touch everybody in the room? How can you make something meaningful on the individual level? How can you make people feel like they're included and be diverse? And whatever you do, how can you measure how effective your teaching is? So I'm going to discuss some of these ideas and some of the examples that I've used to use technology to answer some of these questions. Okay, so here's an example of one of my classes. It's a bit like Where's Wally, isn't it? Right? If you can find me, you get like 5 points. Okay. At UNSW, we have very large classes. We have about 55,000 students, and this is a large first-year class where we try to teach first-year mathematics, calculus, or algebra. It's a tough gig. So over the years, I've developed what I call now a virtual classroom. Now, it didn't have that title when I started. I just started doing stuff, to be quite honest. And so when I talk about a virtual classroom, these are the sort of things that I've been doing to address some of those questions that I showed you at the start of the seminar. So I've done a lot. Peter mentioned videos. I've done a lot of videos as well. Maybe you have too. I have a commitment to open education, so I like free things that are openly available. So I've produced interactive e-textbooks. I've done live streams on Google Hangouts where you're actually having a class with a whole bunch of students all over the world, so it's interactive. I've done some online quizzes just through simple things like Google Forms, and I've used games in education. So this is an example of a video. Can I just have a show of hands? Who also does video in their teaching? Who records some of their stuff? Okay, so yeah, it's becoming more popular now, and making a video it's almost like sending an email. It was 15 years ago. People, maybe 20 years ago now. People were it was just emerging. People didn't really know how to do it, and now it's becoming easier and easier. So here's an example of one of my things. So you can see the lighting's no good. The camera's not straight. Can you see how the board curves? It's not. When people think of online video, they think like Hollywood. This isn't Hollywood. It's like reality TV. Okay, so and Khan Academy is another good example. Khan Academy, they're not fancy videos, but people love them, and they're very effective. You have lots of benefits with using online video. You get flexibility, instant feedback. If you use a platform like YouTube, people don't hold back. They'll let you know what they think of your teaching almost instantly. You don't have to wait till the end of semester to get it. You can also look at analytics, which kind of dovetails into what Alice was saying about data, and analytics is pretty sexy too. I've got to agree with Hal Varian there. Analytics are pretty sexy, and also I found that just videotaping yourself and watching it back again, you can learn a lot about the way you teach. So it's almost like a self-reflective PD exercise. So for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been doing a lot with online video. And here's a comment from a student. I won't read the whole thing to you, but the important thing that I liked about this comment is this student obviously knew that they were not a top student, but yet they could see real value, and that the resources had a profound effect on the way they worked and the way they understood things. How about some hard evidence? Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I did a set of videos for an engineering maths class, 200 students, second year. I asked them the question about the YouTube maths resources. Nobody disagreed. That's a pretty strong endorsement. Now, I mentioned the analytics, and I'll go through a few graphs now. You can see back in 2008 when I started doing this, not much was really happening. These are the number of views per day, right? And then you can see a couple of years down the track, things start happening. And then on the right-hand half of the graph, you get these waves. Anybody know? Like, it looks like a pattern to me. Anyone want to pipe up? What? It's assessment, yes. You don't need a PhD to know that assessment drives activity, right? Okay, but now we can prove it.
What was that really big spike?
Yeah. Did you take your clothes off?
No. that was when I launched my new song, E is a Magic Number. No. Another big question that we can answer now is, how do people find these things? How do people find resources? If we're going to launch something like Maths by Inquiry, how are people going to find it? Okay. To me, this is amazing. I know the font's small. The top blue line and the next one down, which is almost the same, the top one is a suggested video. So you watch a video on YouTube, down the right-hand column of the screen, you get all these suggestions, these personalised suggestions. The second one is a YouTube search. So what does that tell you? It tells you that search is no longer king or queen of finding things. It's suggestions. And people are obviously trusting it, otherwise that blue bar wouldn't be so big. So for any sort of resources, it's always good if they can be suggestive and personalised. What are people looking at these resources on? Well, this is over an 8 or 9 year period, so the computer is still king or queen there. But over the last 4 years, mobile devices have increased year on year. So about 15% of the traffic is now mobile devices, and it's growing. So any kind of resources that you produce need to be mindful of little screens and mobile devices. Now again, too small to read, but here's some more analytics. You can see here are the viewers by country, it's geographical location. You can see Australia is massively overrepresented at number 3. But you can kind of see the videos that I've done are mostly for university students, and you can kind of see the 18 to 24 age group is the most popular one. So you can see who's accessing your resources, how old they are, whether they're male or female, where they live. Again, analytics are sexy. Now here's an interesting one. This is a simple video about domain and range of a function. Okay, 10 minutes, nothing complicated. When I saw this is over a 5-year period, so analytics over a 5-year period, and it's about 100,000 views for that video. Okay, so a lot of data. This is the really important thing. Have a look at male versus female. It's almost even. Now, if you walk into any maths class, any engineering class, the split is about 4 guys to every girl. So why is that happening? So that opens up a new question. Are online resources and technology poised to level the playing field in terms of diversity and gender balance? Okay, another video, not very professional, but you can see this line down here that is a crude measurement for interaction. So you can see how long people stay on before they drop off to, they get the information they want, or they decide that this video is not for them. Again, another interaction one. This curve measures engagement. And so this middle line is average engagement compared to all other videos on YouTube, and you can see it sort of goes down where people click off because they don't want, they know it's not what they want, and then it goes up and stays around and stays around and stays around, and eventually the video is either going to stop or people will click off. Now that's not a typical video; that's one of the best ones, but you can see that you can really find out where people are dropping off and go back and analyse what's happening in the video at that point. Okay, so what has been the biggest criticism of videos? Well, we might get to that in the panel discussion, but yes, passiveness. Okay, when somebody's watching a video, the video doesn't really care what's happening, right? The video is going to play anyway. Okay, so people, the trick with, the danger with watching a video is it's a bit like going to class and just sitting there, not engaging. I watched a video, I must be learning something, right? So what I did was I started building that virtual classroom. I started writing some textbooks, some free textbooks, where every chapter was linked to a video, and what you do is you fill in the blanks. This sort of meant that students, it was designed to get people engaging more, going sort of back and forth, pausing the video, and actually taking some notes. Okay, I won't read that to you, but they're free. The books are absolutely free, so anyone in the world can download them. These are the most popular books on this particular publisher's website. Now see if you can spot the odd one out. I Still Can't Speak English, Personal Confidence and Motivation, English for English Speakers, and Engineering Mathematics. Okay? Now, 2 million people have read that book. 2 million. So that's another big tick for making things accessible and open and free. Okay, personally, I'm not a big fan of prescribing textbooks that cost $250 each. That's just not something that I'm into. Okay, again, my big fat head, but this is the next step to online video. And I'm sure some of you have done it here. Things like webinars where you are streaming your presentation or your class live. So there's no editing, there's no post-production, you just get up there and it streams. And people are interacting with you live on the other end, controlling what you do, giving you instant feedback face-to-face or virtually face-to-face. It's been great. Now, a lot of teachers, a lot of academics grumble when I give a talk like this because they're like, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. I've got 2 small children, one's 3 and one's 5, okay? This, for me, is the most efficient way of doing video presentations or video classes, because you do it once and that's it. It's like giving a talk now or giving a live class. It just happens. So I would very much recommend that. That's the way forward if you are time poor. Oh, okay, it's a little bit chopped off, but the next thing we plan to do in the next couple of years is look for transcripts and translations for videos. As I said at the beginning, I like the idea of scaling education, taking an idea and making it massive, crossing borders, crossing regions. One thing that was decided in the 20th century was that English would be a big form of communication for scientific literature and whatnot. But what about people who can't speak English or have English as a third or fourth language? How can teaching reach them? Well, we've experimented with transcripts and translations. It's not perfect yet, but I'm excited by the idea. And the last thing, and we can probably talk about this in the discussion, was what will a lecture look like in 25 years? Will we still be doing what we're doing now? I think there's always going to be a need for the human touch, but are we going to transition to something else? What do you think? No? Oh, okay. 5 years. Okay, well, I think I'm going to hand back to Tristram now. So I'm happy to take questions, and I'll see you at the panel afterwards.
Okay, any questions for Chris?
Hi, Chris. Are the videos done live with students, or you do it separately without students?
That's a really good question. When I'm doing the live ones, I'll have a bunch of students, at home or in the library or something like that. They're done on my own sometimes, but also sometimes with a group. So I'm conscious of things like, so if they're done with a group, I don't put that up openly unless, I'm mindful of things like privacy and things like that. So I think with university students, it might be a little bit different because they can sort of sign their own forms and whatnot. But even the ones where you might have high school students or a bunch of high school students, that it doesn't have to be completely open. You can still sort of have different levels of openness on YouTube or whatever your learning management system is. So, yeah.
Any further questions? Steve?
Sorry, I'm going to ask a nasty question, Chris. One of the characteristics of university students, in my experience in the last couple of unis I've worked in, is that their sole motivation is passing an exam so they can get something at the end of it. Do you think making videos actually plays into their hands?
I think the same. Okay, what's stopping a student coming to class and doing nothing and expecting the same? So I think whatever it is, whether it's a live class or any sort of resource, people have to engage with it. And if they're likely to do that, then it's likely to be more meaningful. So just making a video, playing into their hands, I don't think so. I wouldn't agree with that. I don't think it's necessarily made students lazy. I mean, there's a famous quote, turning up, 80% of success is just showing up. What some people are concerned about is that, nobody will come to my classes. Yeah, that is a concern. And that's one reason why I always have done this since 2008. It's always a value add, not a replacement. Because people learn in different ways. So, for example, one student might really they might sit in the front row and they might love coming to class. Whereas others, I don't know, maybe they're working 2 jobs and they're sick or something. So, yeah, but it's a good debate. It's not a nasty question.
Another question? Okay. Yibasi.
Chris, I was just thinking back to that quote that you put up about the student that said that really helped her being able to, I guess, go over and over the tube because that was the way she learnt, and that relates, I think, to what I was talking about earlier about maths anxiety, that part of the anxiety for students often comes from that public, they feel humiliated in public if they can't understand, and if they can have control over going back and going over it a number of times and learn, I think that's really going to help with their response to it in terms of their emotional response as well.
Sue, I would agree 100% with that. I think some students, they feel pressure from various sources to get everything instantly, and if they don't, they think there's something wrong with them. And with these sort of resources, yes, they can go to class, but they can catch on in their own time by engaging with some of the resources that traditionally, 20 years ago, just weren't available.
I was just going to say that in light of all of this, as a baby boomer, you know, came through the protest era, blah, blah, do you think because we've got all of these different things and this notion of you can download your lecture notes, you do the videos, blah, blah, do you think that kids who are actually doing a tertiary education are losing something from all of that in terms of that the whole point about being in that educational environment and having the arguments and the discussion and the collaboration that comes from actually being part of a lecture group and the extended group is actually something really huge that's going to be lost over time?
That's another great question. I think communities are very important. Learning communities are really, really important, but they are changing. I think a couple of years ago when we talked about deregulation, at least in the university sector, so you take the cap off numbers and you start charging fees. If that happened, I would have been really, and it's happening in the UK, I would have been really interested to have seen how students behave when they're suddenly paying $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year for their education. Would they put more value on face-to-face interaction? Would they start coming to lectures more? I don't know. I would hope they would. But at the end of the day, I think, at least in the university setting, it's up to the students. Students will come to a lecture if they see value in it. If they don't see value in it, they're going to vote with their feet.
I had a quick look on YouTube, and most of your videos target tertiary, possibly college. I haven't taught year 11 and 12 maths, so I don't know. Have you thought of, or will you be aligning that with the Australian curriculum year 11 and 12 so that we can use and abuse it?
That's also an excellent question, thank you. I think there are quite a few teachers who are playing in that space already. People like Eddie Wu is very famous. Yeah, he's very famous and he's very active, very good teacher. Khan Academy is there as well. I'm not sure if that can be mapped to the Australian curriculum, but I would actually have a look at what Eddie Wu is doing, because he is a great teacher at Cherrybrook, which Judy mentioned before. And he's very, very popular. So I would start there, and yeah, I'm happy to give you the URL after the site. But yeah.
Any further questions? Or I think we thank Chris at this stage. Thank you.